Sare Jahan se Hacha, Hindustan Hamara. Celebrating Republic Day is a matter of pride. And today it's even more special having two extraordinary dignitaries with us who are going to give us an insight about electoral reforms and simultaneous elections. As a committed civil society, we felt it is very essential for our citizens to first understand the scope, the availability, and the exposure which any electoral reform or any simultaneous elections as a concept has to be clear. So, with this, may I request Prime Point Srinivasan sir to invite our special guests.
Good evening, viewers on YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter, and inside the Zoom select invite audiences. We are celebrating in advance the Republic Day 2021 for the convenience of all the people. Today we have two eminent and legendary persons with us to discuss about electoral reforms and simultaneous elections. Mr. T.S. Krishnamurthy, the former Chief Election Commissioner of India, who has held the 2004 general elections and even the President of India election also. He is with us. In July 2004, he has submitted the first official recommendations was submitted by him on electoral reforms with the 22 recommendations to the then Prime Minister, Dr. Manmohan Singh. That is the thing that is now being discussed everywhere in various committees. He is the initiator of the electoral reforms discussions. And for another credit is only during his time with a single stroke of signature, he introduced EVM machines in all the 543 constituencies. Now today we have saved lakhs and lakhs of trees thanks to Mr. T.S. Krishnamurthy. We are greatly honored to have him in our midst. He is also the mentor and patron for our Sansad Ratna Awards Committee and next-gen political leaders who are organizing this event. We have with us Dr. Sudarsana Nachiappan, another very well-known, popular and legendary political leader. Dr. Sudarsana Nachiappan, he was a member of Parliament, member of Lok Sabha from Sivaganga constituency. Then on two terms, he was a member of the Rajya Sabha. When he was the Rajya Sabha member, he was the chairman of Rajya Sabha Committee on personal grievances and law and justice. During his time, two times he was the chairman, and during his time as the chairman of the Rajya Sabha Committee on Law and Justice, he has made a deep study on electoral reforms and also simultaneous election. What we are talking now about, the recently Honorable Prime Minister has talked about one nation, one election, that is known as simultaneous election. So he has presented two reports to the Parliament. One is in 2007, report number 18 of the Rajya Sabha Committee on electoral reforms. On that, number two is report number 79 in 2015, December 2015. He made a presentation about simultaneous election. Both he has made a deep study. In fact, I have had a long conversation with him for our cover story last month. And the amount of research that he has done in his time was enormous. So we are having the two legendary persons. One more thing about Dr. Sudarsana Nachiappan is he is one of the well-respected political leaders. Though he belongs to Congress, he is one of the very well-respected politicians cutting across all party lines. Even the opposition parties, they always like him. They love to go and interact with him on matters of very important. That is the way in which, rather, I used to say that he is not a mere politician. He is a statesman also. Very well-respected person. Today, he is on somewhere on the highways because of his leader, Mr. Rahul Gandhi, has arrived in Tamil Nadu. He is going to attend the meeting with him. So he is on the way on the highways. For our sake, he has not cancelled his appointment. He is somewhere, he is standing near the highways in the car and then sitting in the car and then he is giving us an interview. Thank you very much, Dr. Sudarsana Nachiappan, for honoring us. And I welcome Mr. T.S. Krishnamurthy and Dr. Sudarsana Nachiappan. Regarding the subject of electoral reforms and the simultaneous elections, And the electoral reforms is one of the most talked out topics of a day, because we have had three important things are bothering the minds of common man like us. One is the money flow in the elections. Huge money is being in the recent, I think, 15 years or something like that. The huge money is flowing in the elections. And even when I hear from the political leaders, when I'm asking some of the political leaders whether we're going to contest in Tamil Nadu elections, they immediately say, sir, where I can go for 10 crores or 15 crores. Is it so needed? 15 crores for an assembly election, where the money will come? And if they are electing, how they can generate that money? This is something very serious issue to be bothering the minds of ordinary people. Whether an average middle class person or a man from the poor family with a rich knowledge or a commitment or even educated person, whether they can enter into politics and dream of MP or MLA. This is another important thing. Another is the criminalization of politics. The criminalization is, and most, even I find that 22 recommendations submitted by Mr. T.S. Krishnamurthy in 2004, July. After that, I don't think that anything has been concretely done by any of the successive governments by legislation. Whatever the reforms have come, it is because of the Supreme Court judgment. Even we have had an interactive session with Mr. Justice A.K. Patnaik, who has had the landmark judgment in the political for the criminalization. And Mr. T.S. Krishnamurthy himself, I'll be happy if Mr. Krishnamurthy himself narrates that what are the serious botherations, the funding and the criminalization of politics. These are all the main areas which bothers the common man. Now today we have two legendary experts are here. Let us hear from them. Then finally I will give my own at the end of it. I will also join at the conclusion remarks. Over to Priya.
Thank you so much, sir. Thanks for that warm welcome to all our audience and our respected chief guests. Srinivasan sir, if I may request you to turn on your camera. We could hear you all through, but we couldn't see you. Unfortunately, I think by mistake you have turned off your camera, sir. Yes, sir. Thank you. Thank you so much. So we didn't want to disturb you during the flow of the conversation, so I just waited for you to complete. Thank you so much, sir. And so now we've got, it is an ocean topic: electoral reforms and simultaneous elections. Though both most wanted fruit for every citizen, as an ordinary citizen, everybody would wish for an electoral reform and for simultaneous election for various other reasons. But today we are going to have a complete understanding about what these two concepts are. So before we get into the discussion, so let me just, to the chief guests and the audiences watching us. So the flow of the program will be like, we will have few conversations with few questions with our respected guests, and after that then we keep the floor open to questions for people from Zoom and also watching us live on social media platform. So we would just request you to keep the questions crisp and don't please raise any personal questions. So this is an arena where you all can understand about these two legendary concepts. So to begin with, sir, I'm keeping the floor open to both of you, sir. If you could just open the conversation saying, today we are celebrating the 71st Republic Day of India, and where are we today in perspective of elections? So first, if you could hear T.S. Krishnamurthy, sir, then we can come to Sudarsana Nachiappan, sir. So you have to please unmute yourselves before you start. Srini, can you help him unmute? Can you unmute him?
Yeah, I think it's okay now. First of all, let me convey my appreciation to the Prime Point Foundation for organizing this, although the subject is quite old and repeated on many occasions. But I suppose we keep on discussing this, and one day we'll find at least substantial solution to the problem. I would also like to convey my appreciation, respect, and regard to Dr. Sudarsana Nachiappan, whom I know for a number of years now. And I had the pleasure of appearing before him when he was the chairman of the Parliamentary Committee on Electoral Reforms. It has always been a joy to speak to him because he is very familiar with the subject, and I'm beholden to him for being part of today's deliberations. As far as electoral reforms are concerned, I think this has been discussed for so many years and decades probably. But unfortunately, this is one area where there has been no political consensus, whether it is whatever be the government, they should come with at least some important reforms in the interest of the nation. Now, 2 or 3 things which I am sure all the parties will agree, and I think they should initiate immediate action on these things. First, a law on political parties. If we can have a separate law on political parties, about its formation, about its functioning, about its financial management, about its information that can be disclosed, particularly donations, etc. And also disputes within the party. We are finding it, at least in the Election Commission, we had to depend upon earlier Supreme Court judgments, and on that basis, we had to make a ruling. But if all these things can be, and also the contents of a manifesto, etc., if all this can be brought down into a separate legislation, it will be absolutely useful for improving the quality of our political parties and their contribution to democracy. This is one area which I have been asking for it for quite some time. There are a number of countries, even some African countries, they have a separate law on political parties. If we can have a law on companies, I think we can certainly have a law on political parties, so that there is the area of operations of the political parties, their jurisdiction, their powers, etc., can be made very clear. In fact, there was an attempt made by Association for Democratic Reforms to draft a model law for political parties. This was discussed in a meeting headed by Justice Venkatachalaya when I was there in Delhi. And unfortunately, there seems to be no further development thereafter. So this is one area where political parties should not have any difference of opinion. They can have difference of opinion on the contents of the law, but I'm sure they can initiate action for a separate law on political parties. The second important thing I would like to stress is the need to ensure that the one-party system is done away with. Oh, sorry, the first past post system should be done away with. At the moment, a simple majority of even one vote can result in winning of the candidate. In a vast country such as ours, with so much of diversity, this does not really seem to represent the constituency. For example, if a person who wins with the 20 or 25% votes poll, does he really represent the remaining 75%? It's very difficult for me to accept that he will represent, because he has his own interests, he has his own limitations. So this is one area where probably, for example, there are a number of solutions available. In some countries, they insist on 50% plus one vote for the winning candidate, or 33 and 1/3% plus one vote, or some other condition, so that it is not merely less than 25% voters who elect the leader. So this is one area where the first past post system should go. In fact, we had a few cases where people had won with only one vote difference, and they did not really represent the constituency. So this is one area where I think we can give some importance. The third one is relating to funding of the political parties. Now, unfortunately, the electoral bonds that have been introduced, I do not at all agree that it promotes transparency. And although it is claimed there is some partial transparency by bringing it because the money comes into the banking channel. But the most important requirement of election is transparency. We should know who has donated. So the best thing is to do away with the electoral bonds and bring some other method. Of course, one of the suggestions I have made, which is to some extent accepted by the Election Commission in a seminar that was conducted about 2 or 3 years back, and it was sent to the government, was that a national election fund should be set up where people should be allowed to contribute straight away, and we should give 100% tax exemption. The corporates can also give donations to the national election fund. At the moment, the present systems allows, apart from the electoral bond, bearer bonds, which are, in my opinion, not conducive at all, the corporates are now compelled to make their contributions sometimes in cash to avoid any publicity. And sometimes they use these bonds so that it is concealed, the donor is concealed. And the nexus between corporates and the political parties affect the independence of the political parties. When they come to power, they are compelled to oblige some of the big donors in matters of policy making, etc. So this, if you can cut off this nexus between corporates and the political parties by having a national election fund, and it will serve both the political parties and the donors, because it's going to take away unnecessary compulsion between two stakeholders in this matter. So this is a third area where I think we should stress. Fourth area is to bar the criminals from contesting. Of course, it's a very controversial area where, because political parties think that unnecessary cases can be foisted by a ruling party against the opposition party and prevent others from contesting the election. There can be a number of safeguards into that, and we have already said only in respect of offences punishable with 5 years and above, and where the court has framed the charge sheet until then, and then 6 months before the date of announcement of the election, all those such cases, they can be debarred. If, for example, it's not that they are permanently debarred until the case is completed, they are kept away from the electoral arena. This is the fourth important point that I would like to stress. Of course, the simultaneous election is a very vast subject. It requires a constitutional amendment, without which I do not think it can be implemented. Although it will also require a few other administrative changes, etc. But it's not going to be easy to implement, although it is attractive conceptually, because in the larger interest of the nation, we need not be on an election mode all the time. But is it possible? Is it, at this present political scenario, will the state government, will they accept such a change? The political parties will accept a change. It's a big issue, though in my opinion, it is desirable but difficult to implement. In these words, I think I'll leave others to speak, including Dr. Sudarsana Nachiappan. Then we can probably have a discussion.
Thank you so much for those enriching thoughts, sir. As you rightly said, you have been a torchbearer for electoral reforms for decades together now, and you are still standing for a lot of electoral reforms with a lot of zeal and commitment. We really look up to few of those electoral reforms at least coming into action. So can I request Sudarsana Nachiappan, sir, to share his views on this? Where are we on the 71st Republic Day in relation to elections?
Good evening, and I'm greeting all of you for having the 71st Republic Day celebration in 48 hours or so. It's a proud moment for us to celebrate it, because I see many of the young faces who are going to rule the country, and we the people are only laying certain type of roads for you to be convenient for carrying on the democracy. Actually, I'm very proud of having the association with Shri T.S. Krishnamurthy, very tall man in the electoral reforms. And we were proud to have him as one of the witnesses to give his views before our committee. Similarly, I appreciate the feeling of T.N. Session Ji before the committee requested him due to his illness. Even beyond that illness, he appeared before us. And these are the moments where we can appreciate the commitment of Mr. Krishnamurthy and the T.N. Session. These are all on records. We have examined all the former chief election commissioners and the working election commissioners at that time, when we took up the matters at various periods of my term of 7 years in two different periods. That is from 2004 to 2009, and then 2014 to 2016. Now, I appreciate the feeling of Dr. Krishnamurthy to have the representative manner, the equitable way of counting the votes, and then how the different parties can have the representation, which is now practiced in many of the European countries, especially in Germany. But we have got our own problems in that. I will come back to that thing, but I will take up one by one as our TSDK has already observed it. First of all, I will take up the issue of the first person crosses the post is the thing which we are now following it. Even by winning one vote, a person can get be elected. But the person who has got a sumptuous number of votes, that is more or less 50 to 49 percent, 51% got elected, 50% owner could not be represented because of the 50% who have elected them. But at the same time, last so many elections, we have got a very great honor throughout the world that as the largest democracy, we have done the greatest job by excellent people just like Krishnamurthy and others who have done which was a great appreciation in each and every country. Even now, one of the past President Trump has challenged the verdict of their election commission. But never it happened in India. Nowadays, some people are challenging the electoral missions, but that also proved beyond reasonable doubt by demonstration before our committee. And we also appreciated that we cannot have that doubt upon this system, because the voting by the paper ballots is something different, where I can say my own experience as I contested in Lok Sabha and also in Assembly. I was defeated by 500 votes, because when you count 100 votes, one vote of my symbol, and that is 99 vote of my symbol will be there, but one vote of other party will be on the top. They will just push that bundle here. 5 bundle is sufficient to make me out. This is the way the people can do it. But in electronic machines, only exceptional cases are happening it. That can also be corrected by the present system of checks and balances, which are made in presence of the representatives of all the political parties before starting the poll and also ending the poll. And when we go very detailed, there will be some backlogs and also some hiccups will be there. But we have to change during the course of the evolution of democracy, which is now practiced throughout the world, as India is a model for that. Regarding that funding of parties through bond and other things, I feel USA is having a very good model. United States of America, they cannot, a candidate cannot contest even in the preliminaries of their own political parties without showing how much money from whom it was received. It has to be shown. The similar things can be brought in India. And I appreciate the manner in which Mr. Krishnamurthy has presented regarding the law, elaborate law, which has to be brought in for the political parties. And at present, the Representation of People's Act, 2 acts are there, 1950 and 51. Both the acts are elaborating these things, but through only specific sections. The supervising power and regulatory power is vesting upon the election commission. Through that, we could succeed in so many elections, 68 parliamentary elections and so many assembly elections throughout India, we could succeed it. But at the same time, this type of separate law is very, very much needed to have a clarity and transparency, and so that the people can understand how the system is working. Now, only lawyers can interpret the sections and they can elaborate it. Only court can appreciate, but common man cannot appreciate it. They blame when they find that their justice is not done to them. Therefore, this is a very important thing which he has made it. And similarly, he has made it on the National Election Fund. That was practiced once. I hope you remember. In certain cases, even the model ballot papers and posters and petrol consumption quotas were also given by the Election Commission by distributing to the candidates. But there was so many complaints, therefore they stopped it doing that type of distribution of the fund through the Election Commission. Now the Election Commission is a separate body who cannot be challenged by anybody, but the court has appreciated their work then and there, even though they don't have this permanent system of electoral body throughout India. They borrow the officials from different layers. Vertically, they are borrowing it for a certain period of election process, and then that personnel go back to their own services. Therefore, the justice is not done in certain cases. I will tell you one simple example. Now we have got violation of code of conduct and electoral laws, and FIRs are filed. We are getting news that everybody is charged. FIR is filed against them. They caught hold of plenty of money in their car, and that person was arrested. These are all news we are getting it. But unfortunately, we are not having separate court for proceeding the criminal cases of the Representative People's Act provisions. We don't have separate courts. I conducted in the last period of 2015-16 by touring throughout India and called all the state electoral of chiefs and also the election commission also. They appeared before us. They gave their representation that there should be a separate court for conducting, prosecuting, investigating, and also conducting the trials before the criminal courts by special court system. If you want to have a justice in the criminal system and also the electoral system, then you should have a separate court system. Number one is we should have separate structure, at least a lean structure of electoral body, from the topmost chief election commission down to the level of district returning officer. There should be at least minimum number of staffs provided separately throughout the year, so that they can go through all the process which has to be conducted during the period of the trial before the prosecution cases in the various levels of the courts. And another thing is regarding the simultaneous poll. It was a very interesting subject. We have succeeded first 4 elections, 1952, 1957, 1962, 1967. We have succeeded throughout India. We conducted the simultaneous poll. That means simultaneous poll, which was referred to as, we considered only simultaneous poll for assembly and the parliament. Now they are talking about the panchayat elections also, that we cannot take it because it is the prerogative according to the constitution. It has to be conducted by separate state election commission, which was nominated by the state government, not by the central government. Therefore, I don't want to take up that issue. Let us discuss about this report, which was filed on my chairmanship in 2015, which has clearly said that it has to be restored, but it is not possible so easy, because many of the political parties feel that it cannot be done. There is a zigzag manner. Every year, there are plenty of states are going for election. Therefore, throughout 5-year term, a parliament member who has been elected, who is working, has to face through the assembly elections and by-elections throughout the 5 years. The government is going for the, that is code of conduct, 90 days or more so. They cannot do any developmental activities. People have to stop all their benefits through the developmental works by the government. The budgetary provision could not be expended, and it has to be tackled by next year, carry over to the next year. These are problems, teething troubles which are coming now. Therefore, what I would like to suggest is simultaneous poll is possible, but at the same time, it cannot be done overnight. As Mr. Krishnamurthy has mentioned it, it has to go for a constitutional amendment. But without constitutional amendment, without bringing any other law, we suggested another alternative course. That is, every 2.5 years in the United States, the representatives are elected, which becomes that is 2 years there, because 4 years is the term for the president. Therefore, 2 years, there will be election for the representatives house. Therefore, that will be a mandate whether the government is running properly or not. More or less, interim way of telling to the government, you are not governing properly. The similar thing can happen here by bringing all the state polls, which are to be held 6 months before the parliament election and after the parliament election. Because the Representative People's Act already gives the power to the election commission to conduct the polls within 6 months of the expiry of the period, suo motu, they can bring the election, and the elected new representative can wait till the term is over. That is already the provisions are there in Representative People's Act. But there is a need for a resolution in the Parliament to postpone the election for 6 months if it is not within the period of the government bringing the president's rule. Therefore, that is the only thing we have suggested it, so that we can have first phase, for example, we gave the example in 2019 election, but now let us take 2024 election. 24, we are facing the parliamentary election. At that time, more or less 6 states are going to be polling the same date. The same date, 6 states are connected with that. Just before 6 months or within the 6 months, there will be more than 5 states will be coming to the poll. After the general election is over, 6 months, within the 6 months period, 4 states are coming within the poll. Therefore, more than 13 to 15 states will be connected in the first phase of the election along with the parliament election. The second phase can be conducted by 2.5 years period, where the rest of the states except the Jammu and Kashmir and Bihar, where the Jammu and Kashmir earlier they were having 6 years period, now they are going to have only 5-year period. They can come within the system. But Bihar election was in the in-between. That is, we cannot connect it with within the 6 months period. Therefore, they have to choose whether to go for the earlier poll or not, or dissolving the assembly and going for the poll. Whenever there is a ruling party is there, for example, I don't want to mention the name of the party, but for example, to understand better, BJP is proposing simultaneous poll is a must. Okay, then wherever the BJP assemblies are there, let them dissolve it and bring it along with the parliament election. This is the easiest way. But the other parties will not accept it because I'm going to the poll. I have succeeded. I'm governing. Why you are dissolving me within 2 years or 4 years? I have to wait. You wait for 5 years. Then it will take 20 years to implement our proposal of 2-phased election. Fortunately, when the PMO, Prime Minister's Office, has referred the matter for opinion from the Niti Aayog, they made a special committee to consider my report, my chairmanship's report, and the Prime Minister's suggestion that there should be a simultaneous poll. Then they suggested entirely, they gave a very detailed report, and finally they concluded only the Parliamentary Standing Committee's report is possible to be implemented by 2-phase election. Therefore, that can also be research scholars can look into both the reports and they can analyze about it. Regarding the criminalization in the politics, I made one of the report as a chairman on the prior to the UP election in the 2006 or so. The election officers and people were waiting for my report. But we consider on the plank that simply by filing an FIR against a particular person should not disable him to contest in the election. Because it's easy for the political parties in power to file an FIR. Then when they say that a charge sheet is filed, then also now the Criminal Procedure Code 1974 abolished the 2-level of trial system in the criminal cases. Before 1974, the trial court, the first level of magistrate will conduct the trial of making the chief examination and cross-examination made by the opposite parties, by the accused, and then they will consider the documents, and then they will come to the conclusion whether there is a charge to be tried by the sessions judge or by the magistrate himself. But now we abolished it. Instead of that, the magistrate is having a very limited power to going through the charge sheet which is filed by the prosecution, that is by the police, and he can find out these are the offences charged against you, what you say. If it is triable by the same magistrate, he will conduct the trial. Otherwise, he will commit it to the sessions court. Therefore, the sessions court will go through single way of taking the oral evidence document evidence, getting the question of 313, that is the questioning the accused himself for each and every line of the evidence which were given before the court. And finally, he will come to the conclusion by hearing both the sides by oral argument, written argument, and finally he will give the verdict. That is good. But at the same time, we cannot make simply because of the prosecution is filed the charge sheet. Now, many of the cases are overturned by the first appellate court or second appellate court, by the Supreme Court also, even after 10 years or 20 years. Therefore, we are not having foolproof prosecution system. Till it comes, we cannot accept that by simply filing the FIR charge sheet, a person can be asked to go out of the poll system. Therefore, we gave the report. On that basis, many of the people who were facing the trial were also contesting the election. But fortunately, the Supreme Court has come forward and immediately on punishing any person of 2 years more punishment, he will be disqualified. That is an excellent way by the Supreme Court has made a lot of changes. Many of the chief ministers lost their job. Many of the cabinet ministers in the central government have lost their jobs. That is an excellent one. The another one is many of the reforms which were suggested by Mr. Krishnamurthy and also the earlier chief election commissioners, we have considered and we got the opinion from different political parties. And the political parties were differing in many of the issues. And but one thing is certain, that Indian democracy is evolving. It is developing in each and every election. The courts are supporting us, supporting the rule of law. People are accepting it. The verdicts are accepted it. It is the greatest thing happening in the democracy. We are eligible to celebrate 71st Republic Day. This is my introductory remarks. After the question is raised, I will just clarify it. Thank you very much for the organizers, especially Mr. Srinivasan and his team, of the people who worked so hard to make this possible. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for giving that flow of thoughts, sir. It was like reading a book with no interruption, with no scope of misunderstanding. That was really very clear. Thank you so much for your opening remarks. And to TSK, sir. So you have been in the highest office in order when it comes to elections, and so you have started the EVMs. So now today, people do have a doubt if EVM is foolproof. So please give us some insights on that, sir. So unmute yourself, sir, please. Sir, unmute yourself, sir. You're on mute.
Yeah. As far as electronic voting machines are concerned, there will always be complaints so long as elections are using electronic voting machine, because the persons in the opposition, they will always doubt, because it is quite possible that some tinkering has been done through the help of the officials at the polling station and so on. But we have to independently examine whether it is an ideal solution to Indian conditions. You know, this has been evolved by Indian engineers, and it is very inexpensive instrument, and it has served. I'll tell you a very interesting anecdote. In one of the northeastern states, there was a political party which wanted to boycott the elections. We said, you can boycott, of course you have a right to boycott the election, but elections will be held. We held the elections, and the machines were taken for counting in the open, transparent manner, and the representatives of all parties were invited for the exercise of the counting. The parties which boycotted the election also came for the counting area, and then barged into the counting cubicle and started impounding all the electronic voting machines and broke them. They broke them. Then in fact, they referred to us in the election commission, what can we do? I said, bundle all of them, get 2 witnesses to say that you did not tamper with any of those machines, seal them and bring them to Delhi. We brought them to Delhi. We invited all the political parties that we are going to decipher, because there is a deciphering code by which you could decipher the election result. The persons who boycotted the elections cannot dictate the terms of the results, and we will go ahead with the counting of the votes. It's very, so the credit of some of the parties, including the Communist Party of India, they sent representatives. In their presence, we used the necessary deciphering code and showed them the result. They accepted it. The result was declared. It is a very robust machine. I have no problem if they want to improve the machines. So now, for example, they have now the paper trail, etc. If you want to further improve it, please improve it. But do not abandon these machines. They have served the cause of democracy very well. There is very little scope for interfering with the electoral result. I mean, I would say there is no scope at all, but in order to allay the fears and apprehensions of some of the political parties, you try to have another committee, technical committee. It was cleared by an IIT professor. It was also cleared by DRDO organization in Bangalore. In fact, they told me, Professor Indrasan, who was the former IIT director, I asked him, are you convinced that the machines are good? He said, I have no doubts whatsoever. And he said 40 engineers were asked to even necessary break the machine and find out the loopholes if there is any possibility. And he said, we didn't find anything. In fact, I requested Dr. Indrasan again when I was in office, and I invited all the political parties to demonstrate before him if there is any scope for interfering the machines. I have no doubt whatsoever about the credibility and the robustness and the reliability of the electronic voting machine. But human beings being what they are and political parties being what they are, they will have their own apprehension. They will have the easiest excuse because machine cannot speak. So put the blame on the machine. It's okay. I mean, in a democracy, we have to accept all viewpoints. Go through, give another inquiry committee, let them go through it. Let them be satisfied with it. But to go back to the paper, the manual system, I would say it's the most dangerous measure that you will take, because when the manual system was there, I know how many bogus votes were cast, particularly some of the eastern states. I don't want to mention them. Bogus votes were printed, they were stuffed in, sometimes with the cooperation of the polling officials, sometimes threatening the polling officials, they have been done. Some very respectable leaders were also involved. I don't want to mention their names, but the manual system is certainly not desirable in a country like India. Another important aspect of the machine is there is no invalid vote. In a manual voting system, there will always be manual vote, invalid votes, because if you press the stamp on in between the two names, the vote will not go to any party. So with the result, there is a tremendous advantage in using the machine. We save time, money, paper, everything. So please do not blame the machines. If you have any suggestion, improve the machine. This is what I would say. And I have no doubt whatsoever that the machines are credible.
So before going to Sudarshan sir, to the next question, sir, TSK sir, I also wanted to ask you, where was the need for nota, sir? Why did this concept of nota, you felt, nota?
Yeah.
Why did you feel it was needed at that point in time, sir, when you had got...
There was a lot of representation from people, voters, suggesting this could be considered so that you improve the quality of candidates being put up for election. Because political parties, sometimes they're compelled to put up some candidates. They themselves may not like to have put it, but then because of the constituencies, conditions, etc., they would have probably accepted this position. So in order to drive home a message to the political parties, and it is experimented in some other countries as well, we said you should give an option to the voter. The advantage there is that he doesn't, his vote doesn't go invalid, because many people may not like to vote because they don't like any person, any of the candidates. So we thought, in the interest of the voters and in the interest of improving the quality of the candidates put up by political parties, I wrote myself, when I was election commissioner, to the law ministry at that time, saying that this should be brought about by amending the rule. But the law ministry did not reply for more than 2 years. But in the meantime, the Association for Democratic Reforms went to the Supreme Court, suggesting that this should be implemented. And the Supreme Court, in fact, most of the electoral reform, unfortunately, fortunately, have come only through judiciary. So I would beseech, and I know the good offices of Dr. Sudarsana Nachiappan, they should try to bring about, at least on some areas, some consensus and bring about some changes. where it is possible, because ultimately in the long-term interest of all political parties, it's good to have a good electoral system. And I have no doubts that there are brilliant people in many of the political parties who can be persuaded. But then the Election Commission may not be able to do this job of persuading them. It is purely a political activity. And unless and until the political parties come together and realize the importance in their own interest to bring about some of these reforms, I do not see any big prospect of long-term electoral reforms except through judiciary.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much. So I have a question for Sudarshan, sir. So as you have raised that, simultaneous election is not something very new to India, because we began our electoral procedures only through simultaneous elections. And at that point in time, how did we manage by-elections, sir?
Actually, many of the regional parties were representing when we toured throughout India, that they may not have the opportunity of winning the election because the national agenda may be overshadowing the regional aspirations. But if you see the first election of 1952, it was the roaring period for Congress party, just after the freedom. Successful Prime Minister of Pandit Jawaharlal Nehru, stature, national level, international level. But at that time, Kerala could elect a Communist Party government. Similarly, in the northern Indias, many of the parties, opposition parties, were strongest parties were socialist parties, Praja Socialist parties and other parties. Forward bloc in West Bengal. Therefore, the fear of these people who feel that it will be overshadowed it cannot be taken into consideration, because the issue, if the national parties, the political theory itself like that, if the national aspiration overshadows the regional aspiration, the regional parties will come. And the regional party's aspiration is taken into consideration by the national party, that there will not be any regional party. This is the political theory. Therefore, we have to allow the multifaceted democratic system which we are having it, caste, race, religion, and regional aspirations are there that has to be addressed. Therefore, I feel that it is possible, but because of the zigzag manner, the assembly has been dissolved, and subsequently, during Rajiv Gandhi's period, there was a ban on the that is a switching over to another party was stopped by legislation, and that was a successful one. Then Supreme Court in Bommai's case has given a very clear verdict how the governor can dissolve a parliament, not by head counting. It has to be tested on the floor of the house. Therefore, everything is settled. Now we have succeeded from 1999 to 2004 and 2009 and then 2014. Now we are running 2019 with the national party being the cabinet being represented by the regional parties also, without any hiccup. All the 5-year term has been succeeded, except Vajpayee's period. He preponed because of the military success and other things. He preponed when I was in Lok Sabha just 6 months before. Otherwise, all the 5-year period has been completed by the parliament. Many of the assemblies are completing the 5-year period. Therefore, we have shown the evolution of the democracy, that party will be allowed for 5 years. They are accountable to the people. After 5 years, there will not be meddling with that democratic verdict in between. That we have succeeded it.
Right, sir. Thank you, sir. Thank you so much. So now I'm just leaving the dice open for questions. So, just to not overlap questions, if you could just raise your hand, so we will unmute, and then you may raise the question to our dignitary. So can we have questions now? So can we begin with Ramachandra Murthy, sir? So you have a question? I think he just got it. Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Good afternoon, everybody. There has been a lot of floor crossing, changing of parties in Andhra Pradesh and Telangana recently. Congress party won about 21 seats and lost 16 seats because all the 16 MLAs defected to TRS, the ruling party. The speakers are not taking any decisions and courts are not interfering. The speakers are sitting on the complaints given by the parties who lost the members. For months and years, they're not taking any decision. What to do about it?
Can I answer that so that Mr. Krishnamurthy can follow it?
In fact, you are the right person because it's a more
Thank you.
issue.
we are not encouraging the defection, but we are affected by the defection. Anti-defection law was enforced, but a new evolution has come where the entire group of people can go away by resigning their post and go for another series of elections and come back to the power in the other camp of the ruling party. That is the thing happening here. Mr. Murthy is very correct that the speaker should not put every paper on his back, and whenever he files it, whenever the chief minister or another person is directing, then only they are taking it. For that, the Supreme Court is nowadays observing you should have a particular period of time before which you have to decide on which way you want to decide it. That is the even though it was not a directed direction, in some of the judgments the Supreme Court has observed it. But you are very much correct, sir, Ramachandra Murthy CG. I fully agree with you. There should be an amendment on the regulations for the speaker's power, that there should be a limitation for disposing of the petition so that it can be gone for the appellate authority, that is to the courts, according to the High Court or Supreme Court, according to the law. They make it. It's a very, very must, because many of the terms are completed, then only they are deciding it. And it is a very much needed at present time.
I can add a little bit, nothing to do with the electoral reform, but then in the interest of democracy, I thought I can just mention, there has been a suggestion before the government that whether the defection in the anti-defection law, the election commission can be involved and they can send the recommendation to the president or the governor, as the case may be. But this has not been accepted by any political party because they don't want the election commission to interfere with the enforcement of the defection law. But one of the members of the parliament appeared before me and mentioned he would be very happy if election commission can take over it. But then that again would require an amendment in constitution, I suppose.
It has given him an answer for what Ramachandra sir was asking. So Prime Point Srinivasan sir has a clarity, which was a question. Yes, sir. So can we hear from you, sir?
This is to both Mr. TSK and to Dr. Sudarsana Nachiappan. So today we find that internal democracy of all the parties are not up to the mark. And earlier we had, prior to during British Raj, and earlier we had a lot of samastans, Maharajas, Chola Pandyas. Today it is reported around 5,000 families are ruling the country in a different forms. Some are good, some are bad. But where is the, is there not a good, can we not have some law for political parties and internal democracy of the political parties also? I think Mr. TSK has already put in this recommendation, I think. Let me hear from Mr. TSK and then I will go to Dr. Sudarsana Nachiappan.
I certainly would like a legislative provision for the internal democracy within the party. At the moment, what they do is we get an annual report from the political parties, whether they have complied with their own constitutional requirement of election, etc. Beyond that, we have no power to interfere with the political parties. My own view is that there should be a law for political parties. There should be a provision regarding internal democracy, and there should be a provision for rotation of posts. I mean, you can have different posts, but you cannot hold the same post beyond 2 terms or 3 terms, whatever you want. But there must be a legal requirement so that the political parties will be compelled to implement them.
Yes, sir. I feel that it's as Mr. Krishnamurthy ji has told, that we need a law for that. There should be at least each and every party should come forward within 3 years or 5 years. The internal election should be held, and it should be observed by the election commission also. It should be supervised by the election commission so that it is properly conducted. That type of thing can happen. But in none of the countries throughout the world, these types of things are not come because the ethics is followed there. The same family will not come to the election forum again and again, and they will be having a democratized system of internal democracy in their own party constitution, by which they will be seeing new faces at the top. That is happening there. But even if that is provided here, some of the parties are dominating and they are making a backroom way of dominating the choosing the election president or choosing the other people and other things. That gradually it has to, again, this is a part of evolution of our democracy. 600 years and more old US elections or the UK elections, there also the family is coming as senior Bush or junior Bush. In that way, people are coming and going. But India is more democratic rather than the American way of democracy. But India needs more time for gaining, for bringing the bottom level people to come to the top. That is happening now throughout India. And it will take some more years because of education and people's awareness and bringing down the age of the elector, that is down to the 18. People are having different ambitions reflected in the election results. Therefore, I feel within 10 years or so, everything will be perfect in India, which can be followed by other countries.
Thank you so much, sir. Very optimistic and progressive. I think this gives us a lot of courage and confidence to keep going further. So we have a question for TSK, sir. So the question is, when the Constitution says no discrimination on caste, creed, and religion, how come the entire election is running on it?
Please repeat your question. I'm not able to follow it.
When the Constitution says no discrimination on caste, creed, or religion, how come the entire election is running on it?
Well, I do agree that there are a number of political parties which have a caste orientation. There are a number of political parties with religious orientation. Unfortunately, nobody has questioned the existence of such parties. Perhaps a constitutionality of this can be questioned in court, whether they can exist. So when these parties are allowed to be formed, because there is nothing, no bar. In fact, when we try to bring in some extra restrictions on the formation of political parties, Supreme Court had clearly told us the right to form an association is one of the fundamental rights, and you cannot put in too many restrictions in forming an association. In fact, we had even thought of some restrictions in at the time of recognition of the political parties, but the Supreme Court has given full freedom as far as formation of an association is concerned. And as you know, there are more than 1,000 political parties on the register. Only about maybe maximum 300 political parties really contest the elections. I see no reason or why we should allow such thing to happen. At least if we can have a position where if a party has not contested the election for 1 or 2 terms, they should be debarred from contesting the elections. Because there is an apprehension, I don't know, because some people have mentioned that some of these post-box political parties registered but not participating in the election, they serve some very questionable intentions, with the result that the quality of democracy gets affected. In fact, there is also one rumor that it is used to channelize black money into white. I don't know. I have not got any evidence towards that, but there are allegations, and therefore it is necessary to streamline the formation of political parties. And it is necessary to ensure that at least the names of the caste or religion should not be there in the political parties' names. We can at least prevent that, if not anything else. But there is definitely a scope for improvement in that area.
Dr. Sudarsana Nachiappan, sir, your say on that, sir.
Yes, sir. Yes, madam. Actually, you have correctly indicated that there should not be any discrimination of race, caste, or religion. But it doesn't say that they have to be represented. Many of the castes are not represented by this present system. They take more time to be represented. Many of the races have not come into the force at all. They have not at all have any person to be represented. Take, for example, women. Now we don't have any Chief Justice of India or any of the people to come from women's side. We have recommended 50% of the judges should be appointed from women. The races, sex, religion, every people are having a deficiency of not utilizing the democratic process. Therefore, it will take more time to bring out all the races to compete and come up again. And also the religion has to come. And one stage, there will be a secularism and there will not be any race or there will not be any caste who have not been represented. That is the stage when this particular constitutional provision will have the force, full force. Till then, we are giving equal chances to every race, every caste, every religion, and every sex. That has to be practiced. It will take more time because the education has percolated to the down level. Tribal areas, scheduled caste, scheduled tribe, OBCs, everybody are educated. They are questioning everything. Therefore, it's a correct time. We will settle the matters properly and every people will be represented in the forum, topmost forum or in the panchayat forum and everywhere.
So do you believe that probably education system it is evolving these days? So do you believe that probably a strong education system will slowly deceive the importance of casteism in politics? So do you
Exactly. Because the casteism cannot be eradicated in one go. Because many of the people have not come into the beneficiary list. They are kept out of the benefits. Therefore, they have to come forward by educational system. We were having conventional education system. Now it becomes vocational education and occupational education and understanding the environment, understanding the democracy, understanding the governance. This is happening now through the education. Therefore, even a child is asking who is he, why he is using so many police forces when we are not protected. This fellow is having so many police people are standing for this person. Then somebody says, oh, chief minister. Why chief minister is getting so much of thing? Why prime minister is getting so much of thing? These are child is questioning now. Child is very much aware of these equal systems to be catched on. Therefore, we are on a way. We are in a faster way. We can proud of it. We are very fast in getting the things proper.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much. So we have a question from Nandini Alagar, who is the Mahila Congress General Secretary from Tamil Nadu. So yes, Nandini, what is your question?
Yes, sir. So can MPs and MLAs be disqualified by the Election Commission after being elected? If yes, then under what circumstances?
You want me to answer?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, absolutely no power at all. That Election Commission cannot disqualify any member of parliament, sitting member of parliament, or even contesting candidate, he cannot disqualify. That's one of the things I have suggested, that the model code of conduct violations, in order to ensure a reasonably harmonious implementation of model code of conduct, some of the provisions should be made law, part of the law. And the Election Commission cannot probably start any criminal proceedings, but it can be given the power to impose penalty of monetary penalty or disqualification for a period, which can be challenged in the court. I'm not saying that it's an absolute power, but if that is given, at least at the time when the election process is on, I think many of the particularly violence, hatred, personal attacks on leaders, etc., could be reduced. So as of now, we have no power whatsoever to disqualify either a sitting parliament member or a legislative member, or even contesting candidates.
All right, sir. Thank you, sir.
I would like to add some more things, because the introductory remarks I told that our system is not having a separate electoral codes for the electoral offences or for the code of conduct violations. There is no court system available now. And also the election petition which are challenged, as Sister Nandini has asked it, disqualification, she feels that a person who has been criminal or who should not be elected has been elected, and when it is found out, can he be disqualified, or when he violates the law, rule of law, he can be disqualified. These things are happening even though we can take example of Pakistan. Pakistan, when the nomination is filed, there is a special committee is constituted, just like Krishnamurthy, senior people are appointed as a committee. The nomination paper, when it is challenged by the opposite party, it will be referred within 1 week time. They have to decide whether this disability is there for that particular candidate. They decide if it is a disability, then that election petition with that election nomination will be rejected. That is the law in Pakistan. We can also follow like that. But now we are having doubt in each and every institution. That is a period in democracy. Normally it happens. But when we are strengthening our democratic system and the officials are not challenged by other corrupt practices or challenges by the power, who are in the power, then we will get a proper remedy. As you expect it, there will be a day when a disabled person is becoming an abled person through the election process, should be disabled according to the rule of law. For that, we have to have a separate system for election process in the court system.
All right, sir.
Under Next Gen Political Leaders, which is an initiative, where Srinivasan sir is guiding youngsters to join politics, and he's giving the scope and understanding of how the political scenario in India and in an international perspective. The one question which we get across youngsters who are in politics or who want to join politics is about the funding for the political career, sir. So how does this is to Sudarsana Nachiappan, sir. So how does a youngster with all qualities which he believes to be in politics, but doesn't have much of financial backing, so how does he go into the field?
Actually, I felt that now many of the IT people are work at home. I expect a lot of revolution in the villages because the towns are vacated and the countries, that is the villages, are occupied by the intellectual people and IT-enabled people. They should come to the politics. According to the present system of Representative People's Act and the Election Code of Conduct, there is no expenditure at all for any party. It may be a surprise one. But because wall writing is prohibited, wall posters are counted, any cutouts are prohibited, any election vehicles which are not given in the numbers to the election commission is used, it is accountable within the expenditure they have to do it. And more so, the election commission itself goes door by door and gives the slip of the voter slip to the individuals. There is no work for election candidate at all. Just they have to say, this is the thing I will do it when I come to when I am elected. This is the election promise you have to make. The election agenda you have to make it. These youngsters can do it unitedly, and the parties should also provide at least 30% of the youngsters should be in the age group of this entry level of 21 to above, should be allowed to come inside. Then only the parliament and the assembly will be brimmed with the new knowledge, which are now stagnated by the old people like us. It has to be changed by this revolution. It will happen. I'm having a high hope. It is not by seeing a cinema or something like that, but there many of the stories are told. People are satisfied with that, seeing the cinema for 2 hours. But it is a real story where the youngsters has to take it up. There is no need for expenditure at all if you take it and also earlier there was a provision in the Doordarshan. There was a slot is given for every candidate or the political party to express their views. Similarly, now many of the private channels can provide now to have a debate, and every constituency should have their type of a debate. Now there are many open debates in the open forum Many of the NGOs are bringing the people on the platform in one go, and they telecast it. They make it in the Facebook. They make it in the YouTubes. Therefore, it can happen. It should happen. Then only democracy will be vibrant.
Sir, Dr. Sudarsana Nachiappan, sir, as I told in the introductory remarks, now I have been asking many of the youngsters whether they are going to contest in the ensuing elections. Many of them cutting across the party line, they say that, sir, where I can go for money, it needs a 10 crore or 15 crores. As you suggest that practically, theoretically, there is no money is required. But in practice, I don't know why they are all having a feeling or anything, whether they are wrong or we are understood wrongly. 10 crores and 15 crores, they say, and they are not able to. Even very senior people are saying. Yesterday, I talked to one of the senior person of a political party. I asked, where are you going to contest an election? He says, sir, where I have money, sir, I don't have money. Then there is a gap between our perception and reality. Is it not?
That's true, sir. Mr. Srinivasan, you are living in Tamil Nadu, therefore you hear very quickly the crowd of shouting and how the tons of rupees are going down to the villages and each and every poll, but polling station. But my ambition is that is beyond that. People are not for money. I assure you, when I was elected in the Lok Sabha, I could not give me any money to any of the voters. But many of my opposite parties have given the money. But they voted me because I was working in that constituency in my young age from 22 onwards. For 30 years, I was working. Only 52 years, in my age of 52, I got the opportunity to contest in the public election against a big two people. But I could win. I sold only 2 flats, which I earned it. That was only within the limit I could expand it. But people are ready. But people are blamed. Just I used to kindly excuse me for taking time. In INR temples, the gods are provided in every village. They are guards. That is just like a policeman in every village. Nowadays, the thief is coming and bargaining with the INRs, telling that I will give you advance money now. I will go and steal in the houses. And when I come back, I will give you more. This is the proposition now the politicians are doing it. Allow me to steal again from you. Now get 100 rupees, 200 rupees, 4,000 rupees, 2,000 rupees. Why do you worry about it? You tell the truth. You tell the people, I don't have money. I'm not going to earn from you. I have not even earned 1 rupee. That is the fame for me, for my politics in 50 years. But the other people have gone to the jail. But I have not gone to the jail. Therefore, the people are accepting the real committed people. Youngsters should have the commitment. They should come forward. They should be clear what they are doing, going to do it, how they are going to change the world, how this stagnation is going to be removed. Political system can be changed by the only youngsters, but not by elderly people like us. We are people who have to count the days. Therefore, the youngsters have to take the challenge. They should not give any money. They should meet the voters, tell them these are the things I'm going to do it. Naturally, these people who are corrupt people who are having the money, put the money to the hands of the electors. They will say, electorate, the people will say, I will receive the money. When you enter into a wedding hall, people are giving some gift to you. Similarly, I'm getting it, but I'm not going to vote for you. I'm going to vote for the youngsters. They will vote for that. We will see the changes. That has to happen.
Fantastic, fantastic. That means you advise the youngsters to go to the root or to get a connection with the people. Is it not, sir?
That is the only sloka now. That is the only thing. Divine power has to be given through the youngsters, through the people, telling that, look here, your road is not properly repaired. Your water is not coming. Your children's school uniform is not properly stitched. It is an old cloth. Your classroom is not properly made. Your health facilities are not provided. Drinking water is not provided. I will provide it. I am a youngster. I am an IT degree holder. I am a PhD holder. I will do it. I will discharge it. I told many of the youngsters, kindly contest first of all as a Panchayat president. Their budget for a year is 4 crores, minimum 4 crores. Why not you handle 4 crores? Even if you are appointed in an IT company, you are not going to handle 4 projects. 40,000 crores in a district. Funding is coming, but it is followed by the intermediaries. Why not the youngsters take the challenge? Election is not the last resort for the scoundrel. It is the first resort for the intelligent people who want to change the world.
Exactly. Beautiful, sir. Beautiful. Beautiful. Priya, you can take over.
Yes, sir. We have one question from YouTube. So the question is, if an elected MLA or an MP has to vacate his seat for any given reason, why should we even have a by-election? Why can't the party select somebody and fix up that place? Why should we even wait for a complete a term of election? Will this ever be possible? Is it right or wrong? Sir, it's open to both of you, sir. You can take.
Sir, Mr. Krishnamurthy ji, you can open it.
Yeah, I can. Thank you.
Because you recommended for that.
Yes, I did. I had specifically mentioned that if there is a need for a by-election, or if the sitting member either resigns or dies in his office, then I said there are 2 options available. One, particularly if the period is more than 2.5 years, I've said either the party itself can nominate a new person, the winning party, or the party which won earlier, or the person second in the list could be considered for filling up the remaining period of 2.5 years. But if there is more than 3-4 years break between the vacancy and the end of the tenure, then it's all right, we can conduct the election. That is one. Second, I have said a person should not be allowed to contest beyond one constituency. And if the person wants to contest the second constituency, which is permissible in law, and if he is resigning that second constituency by winning both the constituencies, then he should compensate the government for the expenditure incurred in conducting the election, so that a new election will be held. So these are the 2 suggestions we had made, because the by-elections are much more difficult to handle for both political parties and the election commission, because all the efforts of the contending parties are focused on one by-election or 10 by-elections. With the result, management is a big problem, but we do manage it. Not that it is not unmanageable, but it is not necessary. So my suggestion is, if the term of the House is over by more than half the term, that is 2.5 years and above, and what is left is only less than 2.5 years, do not conduct by-election, do not waste money. Either the law should provide, either the ruling party the party which had won can nominate another person, or the person who had been elected as number 2 in the previous election can be considered as representing the constituency. I think it's worthwhile to consider, because by-elections seem to be contributing more to confusion and chaos in the electoral scenario.
My additional thought is that the person who resigns should be debarred from contesting for life, because it is an opportunity to overcome the anti-defection law. Therefore, we have to amend the law, anti-defection law, providing that if a person resigns in between and crosses the floor contesting some other symbol, he should be debarred from contesting, number 1. Number 2 is, if he dies and the vacancy has arisen, then the party can be given or the second person can be given. These are the 2 solutions I feel at present we can suggest to it, but it has to be brought in law. Now there is no practice. It has to go for the expenditure for the exchequer. That is the taxpayer. This is enormous expenditure for the people, and there should not be any by-election at all. If one person is elected for a period, then the party can be allowed. If it is an independent member, then the next person who got the money, because we are following the system of equal representation, is not given. Therefore, we have to allow the next person who has come should be allowed to be representative there.
Yes, sir. Actually, that sounds like a good plan, though, sir. And Sudarshan, sir, if you could just tell us, now that you have clarified that foot soldiers are very important to be, create an impression in your own constituency that you're going to contest. Now that social media has taken over a lot of time and space for youngsters, and then this virtual field of connect has become that the energy booster and that ego triggerer for most of the youngsters. So what do you want to tell them, sir? Like, how has this social media taken over the field work?
Actually, I got somewhat mixed ideas in this aspect. The social media is now covering a very limited number of youngsters, very, very limited. They are not fully representing all the youngsters, but the limited people are also making the memes and other caricature of individuals and make their own way of play things. But it should be a serious forum. Even Facebooks, I find, they are repeatedly showing their own face. It is not face-saving Facebook. It is giving new idea, new faces, new things to be brought in. That change has to come. Then only social media will help. Till then, the social media will have another level of growth where there will be exchange of ideas, new ideas, researches, data-based things will come. Just like other medias, it will also evolve like that. But it is not a remedy for that. We have to go one-to-one. Conviction is very important for election process. Even if it is not happening, a group of people have to divide themselves and tell what is the verdict of this particular person if he is elected, how he is going to win that election, how he is to work for 5 years. This has to be done by one-to-one expression and exchange of ideas. Doubts has to be cleared from the voter. Then only it will be a healthy election.
Thank you, sir. Sir, TSK, sir, you have given very thought-provoking, ideas when it comes to electoral reforms. So where have we been standing right now, sir? I think it's almost close to 15 years since you have shared your idea. So where are we right now? Have any of your electoral reforms or your proposals being taken seriously, or has it been moved? Where are we right now, sir?
I believe there have been discussions in the government, but if you really ask me the result, almost nothing. The discussion seemed to have taken place, because at least that's what I have been told by officials of the Law Ministry. But even that some years back, and the Law Commission has been giving recommendations. The only benefit I find is that Supreme Court has been able to give some of these reforms. Some of them, like for example, Nota, which we had recommended, it was given by the Supreme Court. And so then there are certain benefits available to sitting legislators, even if they are convicted. That again was undone by the Supreme Court. So it is very unfortunate that political parties have not come together to dispassionately analyze the need for some of these reforms. I think some real challenge before the political leadership. I would like to see, I think now Dr. Sudarsana Nachiappan is there in this discussion, at least one political party in the manifesto, they should come out with some statements on electoral reforms. Even if you don't implement it, at least indicate your desire. In fact, if I can disclose that when I finished my tenure, I told the Prime Minister, sir, this is one of the things which could be considered. At least the Prime Minister or the Chief Minister can air his views that these are the electoral reforms I would like to support. Whether it comes or not, at least there's an indication or willingness of the political parties to implement some of them. I would urge Dr. Sudarsana Nachiappan to talk to his party and see whether at least incorporate in the manifesto some of the electoral reforms which you would like to implement. That would be a good development.
I fully agree with Mr. Krishnamurthy ji, and I will talk to other political parties also and move others also to come forward with the election manifesto. But now we are having a system, the Parliamentary Standing Committee, which recommends like these reforms. The nodal ministry for election commission, which even though it is a constitutional body, it for budgetary demands and other things, they have to come to the nodal ministry. That is the administrative ministry. They have to get the reply from the concerned departments. What are the recommendations carried out by the department every month? They have to make a statement before the parliament. That can be taken up by the discussion in the floor of the house. These are procedures which are followed now. But I feel the youngsters have to come and say, this is the provision, this is the rule. Why not you take a discussion? Why not you pass a resolution like that? And many of the parliamentary procedures are enabling even a single person who can make a change of law. I will say, simply give one indication. Chandrayaan is one of the projects which was made by the government. But that was proposed by me as a single opposition member in a parliamentary standing committee for science and technology. That was now brought in as one of the projects. Second level of Chandrayaan is going up. One individual's imagination can bring so much of changes in the world. Many of the talks which I made it in the parliament as a opposition member, as brought in as a law or brought in as a policy of the government. Therefore, parliamentary system is very, very enjoyable. That has to be fully fulfilled by the youngsters and the people who are elected. They should not feel that it is a yearning forum. It has to be a learning forum. It has to be a forum where you have to say something and see that the people are changing. This is one of the things Mr. Krishnamurthy is very much correct. Every political party should at least spend one line of election manifesto on the electoral reform.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
So actually, we are very moved with obviously your sizzling answers and your spirited, motivation for youngsters to get into politics, or the younger generation in politics. And secondly, that you have taken your time waiting for us in the roadside and explaining all our questions. So we are really moved for your gesture for that. And we have one more question, so from YouTube. So they have a problem where they go to religious places and then they get to see the religious places becoming open canvas spot, and when the person doesn't like it, can he do something about it?
Actually, the election commission's rules, which are reflecting that we should not canvass in religious locations. We can canvass in each and every village or doorsteps and talk with the people in groups or in the open platform. But it is easy for us to go and see the festival or a religious way and participate in one of the prayer and get the votes. But normally the the religious institutions are not allowing nowadays. They feel that it is transgressing in their rights. Therefore, gradually this will be eradicated and people cannot take the refuge that it is a congregation, therefore I am going and canvassing it. That's not wrong approach according to me, but it is a practice now.
So T.S. Krishnamurthy, sir, would you want to add on to it, sir?
In fact, we had some complaints when I was there in the Election Commission. I don't want to mention either the denomination, but I can mention some of the states, particularly like Kerala, where we had complaints that canvassing takes place within the precincts of the religious places, and some of the persons connected or the leaders have been canvassing for that. But as Dr. Sudarsana Nachiappan clearly mentioned, this is beyond our area. We can't enter into any of these places to verify the authenticity of it. The maximum we can do is, if a complaint is received, we can write to the concerned institution and ask for their comments. And obviously, they are going to deny it. They will say that we did not have any. So this is one area where it will be very difficult for the Election Commission to interfere. In a country like here, ours, because unfortunately, we have so many religious practices, institutions here. If you start interfering, I'm sure it will be seen as an interference with the right to practice religion, etc. So my own advice would be just if there is a complaint, write to them and get a denial from them. And unless you have a proof, which is very difficult to get, it will be very difficult for the Election Commission to enforce this.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much. So now we have come to your closing remarks, sir. So I'm leaving it to both our most beloved guests who have been talking right from your heart. So we could actually, the only thing which we as youngsters we can take back is the rich experience and your high aspirations, the way you want to see India next. So I'm sure as youngsters, we will do our best level to keep up your spirit and your ambitions and your aspirations, sir. So closing remarks to both of you, sir. TSK sir, would you start, sir? Then Robbie.
Well, I will be very happy if a lot of changes take place before my lifetime. I'm 80, as you know, and I would be very happy if some changes take place as early as possible. Yeah, I remember when I was retiring, one of the pressmen asked me, "Will you join politics?" I told him, "No, I will not." It's an emphatic answer, no. He said, "Why?" I said, "There are three reasons why I will not enter politics. One is that there is corruption, there is criminality, and there is what is the third one? Chicanery. There is cunningness and all that, manipulations, etc." As it stands at the time of my retirement, I said it's beyond me, and I do not think I have the capacity or the competence to stand for the election or to participate in the electoral process. But I am very optimistic, as Dr. Sudarsana Nachiappan mentions. Things are changing, but they are changing very slow. That's why I feel very unhappy about it. They should change quickly. And that is where I look for some good political leadership. I have no doubt about Dr. Sudarsana Nachiappan taking a mantle and do something on this contact political parties, bring about some kind of a change. At least let them not change itself, but at least let them bring about the thinking in the political parties. There is a need for a discussion, there is a need for some change. Because if they recognize it, I am certain that Indian democracy is on right course. What is happening today, I have written an article, a chapter for an international publication on Indian democracy. I've said people have criticized Indian democracy as illiberal democracy. I don't think India is an illiberal democracy. It is a licentious democracy. Unfortunately, the respect for rule of law is very much absent in many of the areas. If the country can improve its track record on the rule of law and people will have faith, automatically democracy will improve. I have no doubts about it. And I look upon the younger generation to give this kind of a different. And I have no doubt. Only thing is, as I mentioned, I'm worried about the time span. The sooner it comes, the better it is. Thank you.
Thank you, Darshan, that you have given the last remarks to be made by us. But it may be the first remark for you also, for all of you, for all youngsters. Power is based on corruption. Power corrupts the people. Without being succumbed to the corruption, a power has to be there. That is the divine power. When you are having a fear that Almighty has given a power to me, I have to discharge that duty, then you are becoming a good lawyer, you are becoming a good professional, a doctor, an engineer, or anybody. Politicians should also have the fear. They should not fear for the law alone. They should fear for their own self. The politics is not the last resort for the scoundrel. Again, I'm repeating it. It may be Bernard Shaw's remark, but it is the first thing for any intellectual to enter into and change the world. Because without politics in democracy, nothing can happen. It has to happen. Therefore, we have to be more or less follow the dharma of not utilizing the people's money except getting the salary. Salary should be very heavy, just like foreign countries, but we are getting very, very low salary for the MPs, and people are saying you should not get more money. Then they are getting money from other sources. Therefore, you have to give a more sumptuous money, but at the same time, you should be punished if you get even a 1 rupee from somebody else. The corruption can be eradicated by giving a sufficient way of life to the politicians and also anybody. And then if they go beyond the rule of law, then they should be punished. Therefore, you, the youngsters, we believe that you are in the 21st century. You can change the world. The corona has changed the nature. The nature has changed. It has entered. Lion has entered into the villages. Elephants have crossed. They started to live on the roads. Now the agriculturists are living on the roads. But you can make the changes because democracy is available for everybody. Democracy is not for a limited group of people or scoundrels. It is for every individual citizens. Therefore, you have to practice it. You can change the law. Parliament is the temple where you can pray and get everything bounty from the Almighty. Parliamentary system is the best system I have known because I toured the entire world. I addressed the United Nations, many of the forum. But the democracy is the best way where you can show your efficiency. But it is a hard task. It cannot be succeeded like anything. You can win as a lawyer, you can win as a doctor, but you winning in the politics is a crucifixion just like a Jesus Christ. You have to overcome that. You have to rejuvenate yourself then and that and bring the changes. That had happened in my life. I have done it. Krishnamurthy's life, he has done it. We can do it. We can be a predecessor for you, but you have to create as a predecessor for coming generation. Thank you very much.
Oh God, I think we have, yes, sir, we could hear you. Thank you so much, sir. Actually, I'm sure we cannot ask for a better message, for a better spirit of being, and the kindling of nationalism in all of us, and that too at the right sphere of the Republic Day celebration. It was an honor being in conversation with both our chief guests today, sir. So over to Prime Point Srinivasan, sir, for a vote of thanks.
Oh, really, really, really a great evening. Mr. T.S. Krishnamurthy and Dr. Sudarsana Nachiappan, both are legendary personalities in their own domain. And really, we enjoyed the conversation. And we, one thing as Dr. Sudarsana Nachiappan said, we always have a tendency of, ridiculing politics. But one thing is, even before independence, we had a lot of professionals, a lot of dedicated people joined politics. Only thereafter, probably in 1970s, last time also we wrote a cover story, after 1970s and 80s, we started getting a bad politicians because good people have started ignoring politics and they said, you don't talk politics. Politics is not a place. Even when you go to a tea stop, they say, don't talk politics. When you ask your parents, they tell the children, don't talk politics, don't talk politics. Then in that case, we always deny. In fact, we have been telling that politics or about the constitution, about all the other things, it should be taught in even the high school level. And good people should come into the politics. That's why we have started the initiative 10 years ago on the suggestion of Dr. APJ Abdul Kalam Sansad Ratna Awards. We honor outstanding parliamentarians who are doing a great job. Even in politics, as we closely observe the politics, there are quite a lot of good people like Dr. Sudarsana are there in every party. We don't specify a party. All the parties have got a very good politicians are there. And probably they get ignored. Probably we ignore them and they are also not getting into the limelight. And that's why we have started next gen political leaders. NGPL also we started to identify a good political leaders and then to groom them. In fact, we are also going to have some award scheme for them. So, and on behalf of Sansad Ratna Award Committee and NGPL, we thank all the audiences who are watching it through social media and who have joined us through Zoom, and also particularly the chief guest, Mr. T.S. Krishnamurthy and Dr. Sudarsana Nachiappan, for the wonderful conversation. And in fact, we greet all of you on the coming Republic Day, which is coming up within another 48 hours. So we wanted to celebrate the Republic Day in advance, being a Sunday. So thank you very much. Over to Priya for closing it.
Thank you so much, sir. Thank you, everybody. And a round of applause and a lot of namaskarams to all who have been here, and especially our guests who have been very kind in explaining all our questions. And we are really sorry if there were few questions were really baby questions or petty questions, but you have been really kind enough to make us understand the minimal and the maximum of the gravity of the concepts which we were discussing. Thank you so much for joining with us.